Hey there, and thank you for tuning in to this video. In this video, I'll be covering the customer journey in the geospatial market and how geospatial companies sign 50 to 500K annual contract value deals. Now, what's most important to understand is what are your acquisition channels and where is the revenue? So, where's the money and where do we spend it? And obviously, we're founders, so we want to get an ROI out of what we're doing to get leverage. And so we want to look at this holistically to be able to get the most ROI out of our marketing spend. That way we get our bang for our buck. That's not to say that this table is perfect, but it is a good average representation of the market in geospatial, which is a very wide market. So take this with a pinch of salt. But taking into account all of these different acquisition channels, the first thing I want to have said is all of them can work and all of them do work, but one works better than the other. And it also depends per sub-market. If we look at the customer journey, right, it's going to be random. You actually have no clue how exactly from A to Z it's going to happen because there are certain things you can track and there's a whole lot of things you can not or very hardly track. So you would have to go into your CRM and find the very, very first touch point of every lead and map out their entire customer journey, which I would recommend to an extent to do that, but you can do the actual A to Z for every client. That's just impossible at the moment. But what you can do is essentially map this out for yourself. So what we did here is this is the funnel, let's say, like the little funnel. We have the traffic, we have the middle of the funnel, rather we have the top of the funnel, we have the middle of the funnel, and the conversion. What we're doing with the top of the funnel is essentially we're making people problem aware by essentially telling them there's a better way to do things. This is your problem. You're currently doing X, Y, and Z, but that is not good. So essentially we're telling them the problem. We're being transparent with them like, hey, this is not a good way to do things because either they are doing a lot of manual paperwork and they can automate it or something, right? So that's going to be the top of the funnel. In the middle of the funnel, we're going to go into more depth on what it is that is the problem, why it needs to be solved, and how we can solve it. So what the solution is going to be. So we're going from problem aware to solution aware, and maybe already go to the next level, which is product aware. So essentially, at the top of the funnel with cold outbound, we don't want to just start, here's our product and let me know what you think. We want to go, hey, you're in this industry, X, Y, and Z happens, as we've seen with a lot of our clients. Is that you as well? Or potentially that's you as well, and you also know about this paperwork problem that we have in the market. What if I told you there was a better way to do things, blah, 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 and that's going to be your cold outbound. And then by the end of the email, you've already gone through one or two levels of awareness. So problem aware, solution aware. And essentially you can then convert that lead into product or into being booked on a call or going into a different marketing channel of yours, which can be your website, can be LinkedIn, can be different things. So what we're doing in the middle of the funnel is we're nurturing people with content and blogs. Maybe we invite them to an event, a webinar, or a live event. And technically you can also lead source at events, so it's a bit arguable where you place everything. So it's not black and white fully, but whatever. We have paid ads where we also usually speak to a particular solution, but usually to a problem, can be to a problem too. Then it's probably going to be higher in the funnel. But the customer journey is a little bit random is what I'm trying to paint here. You never really know the full picture, especially in this middle of the funnel. You actually have no clue what happens. Top of the funnel, you do know because you know what inputs you're doing. Are you doing outbound? Then that might be the reason people come in. And content and SEO is also another thing. You can add this to your website, your demo form. This is what I've seen some companies who actually close these deals. A few that I've talked to as well that are not clients at the moment, but are doing already a great job that didn't really need our help actually, because they were already booking so many demos. Did. So they actually had the large deal size already. We've spoken to a couple that actually do 100K plus as well as an annual contract. They really didn't need our help because they were already booking 17 demos a day. At that point, I'm also thinking, well, I can pitch you so many things, but 17 demos. You figure it out yourself because what can I tell you at that point, right? I'm not doing that personally, so they know things I don't. But I've learned from them too. Anyhow, back to the point. Um, this is where the conversion happens. So here we're nurturing people. We have ads, we have our content and blogs. People come through cold outbound because you know that as potentially you've added a question on your website. They may come to your event, they may see your retargeting ad, they may see a content or blog, and then potentially they book in a demo with you. Maybe they go back into the ABM funnel, like it can be that messy. I'll remove all of the arrows, but essentially you get my point. The customer journey in this market is very messy. Sometimes it even goes very fast in the middle of the funnel and it just goes directly here, right? Like you never really know. But well, you do know if you track this properly in your CRM and on your website, which is something I would highly suggest as a first step for revenue operations, uh, overall business development. But if we go back into this middle of the funnel thing, the next phase is the conversion. If people then go from whatever channel it is to your website, that is the one thing where you can optimize for conversion, aside from the actual sales meetings and tenders that you're doing. So depending on how many leads you have and how large the deal sizes are and how qualified the people you're speaking to are, you could add an AI lead qualifier, which is going to help with qualifying people if they're even qualified to get on a demo with you, or putting them back into somewhere else in the funnel, like following you on LinkedIn, which is something you can also do and should encourage your sales team to do actually on sales calls. If they find unqualified leads or leads with no urgency to buy, put them back into the top of the funnel so that they can be nurtured, because you don't want your marketing spend to be lost. If you do nurture those people, they can come back later. So that's something I would highly suggest. Again, optional. You don't have to do this. You can skip over that too. But this is one place where you can optimize for qualification. And then there's the website itself where you can optimize for conversion. So more people actually booking in a meeting, right? That being said, there's more to that as well, because some companies are not going to be interested in getting on a demo with you right away, but rather they will have a tender process, procurement process, and they'll go into that phase right away. So they'll do an RFI, and the demo will come later down the line. You first need to do an express of interest that you want to participate in their RFI, which usually you want to do that like 9 times out of 10, really. Then you need to probably have a conversation with them or give them a little bit more information. And then they may want a demo with you, or they might go into the RFP phase, and then they get in a demo with you if you have actually also expressed wanting to participate. Now, so again, this is even more messy. So ignore all of the different ways in which this customer journey can evolve, can be unfolding. But do take into account that this is what the steps are roughly in this funnel. If we take this tender part and we look at all of these different acquisition channels and essentially parts of your marketing, it's going to be very hard to tell, like, is the revenue being generated here, or is the revenue being attributed, or should it be attributed to the account-based marketing? Should it be attributed to the demo, to the tender? You can't really tell, because even with a tender, sometimes there's public ones, so you didn't have to spend anything on marketing other than being signed up to a tender platform and getting your email notification, which basically means your marketing spend is zero. But sometimes they are invitation only, and then probably they're going to only invite you if you actually have some content on your website, because otherwise they wouldn't find you, right? So if we look at those marketing channels, or those acquisition channels rather, what I did is I kind of started researching where is the revenue, how can you best attribute it in the most fair way possible. Again, take it with a pinch of salt, but I found 45% of the revenue in the geospatial market is going through procurement, meaning it's actually one of the channels with the highest ROI. Because with procurement, you don't always have to actually spend anything on marketing or sales or whatever, because it's just the procurement itself, which it takes time. Don't get me wrong, it does definitely take time, but it's the procurement only. It's not like, especially when it's public, you didn't have to do marketing, literally. If it is invitation only, it can come from your entire client base or from your existing client base, or it can actually be through SEO content, other ways in which a particular party has decided to invite you to their request for information or request for proposal. So again, it's not perfect, but that 45% is backed by real data. Still, part of that you could technically say is attributable to referrals, to outbound, to inbound content and SEO, but these are rough estimates. 25% inbound content and SEO, 17% outbound and ABM. Again, some markets higher, some markets lower, and that difference can be pretty significant actually. I feel like in utilities you might have even more in tenders, but in logistics you might have almost nothing in tenders, in particular logistics products at least. And then we have systems integrations and tech alliance referrals, 16%. If you look at Esri actually, which is the company I've listed as source here, they have 3,000 partners and more than 10% of their bookings comes through them actually, which is very interesting as well. And then Esri as well, on their end, generate basically 10x the revenue for their partners that they actually take from them, which is also interesting because that means that the partners are making a lot of money off of Esri products, which that is respectable. So they have a great partner network, like really good partner network. Customer referrals, here it says 3% and then it's 5% of marketing spend, but technically you could bring the marketing spend down to 0% and make it part of customer success. It can just be one question in every client success meeting, like, hey, do you know anybody else who could benefit from this? That is a question that takes 5 seconds to ask, 10 seconds to answer, and then, well, altogether it may take 2 minutes, but then you actually generate a lot of revenue potentially from that. So that is a really good way of business development, just finding more people like them. And usually one person knows at least one other person who could also buy the same thing, right? So it does make sense. And you can also have some type of program or incentive to help them actually do it, because they don't necessarily want to give you their contacts always. But if there's an incentive, they might do it, or they might be much more likely to do it, even if they're not even being asked for it. If you just put it on your website, right? Then we have paid ads. 4% of geo revenue. I think mainly hardware products are using ads. I've tracked the Facebook ads library, and I've tracked the LinkedIn ads library. There's not many companies running ads in the geospatial market, but the ones that do are all in hard, or at least the ones that do somewhat consistently, all hardware products, all surveying equipment. So I think that's really the only play. I've actually seen people do that on Facebook and LinkedIn, but only surveying equipment is the one place where people actually keep their ads running and enabled. So that's the only way in which I would recommend ads at the moment. That being said, you can do pretty specific targeting with ads. So if your total addressable market is, let's say, bigger than 5,000, so it's not worth doing outbound, but rather worth doing advertising because you can reach the people faster, then I would recommend it. If you can at least target by a job title or by companies, because then it makes sense. In any other situation, it probably doesn't make sense. And then we have events and conferences. Now, this one is actually backed by data, but 2% of the revenue is directly attributable to events. And technically, it can be part of the customer journey. So once again, you can technically say it's more. And B2B spend, 20% is on trade shows. So we just took that number to also apply that to the geospatial market, making the ROI kind of bad. So if we look at all of these return on investments, and once again, they're not always fully fair, you would say, cool, main focus should be tenders, always, right? Meaning, that's what you probably should focus on if that's indeed the route you want to go. If that isn't the route you want to go, inbound content and SEO, outbound and ABM, and systems integrations are a great way. I would always recommend customer referrals, even if it says a negative ROI here, which probably isn't true. But if you just make it part of client success processes, it's really the best thing you can do. And then, yeah, I think I did my little rant on paid ads and events and conferences. So the customer journey is a little bit messy, and altogether it is very interesting to look at and explore this more. If you want to explore this more for your business, you can probably just make the same table. Just look at, cool, what are all of our acquisition channels? Chances are it more or less is this. Maybe one more, maybe one less. You put roughly where you would attribute the revenue is actually being generated, which this is hard to do, but just trust your gut here a little bit, and probably to an extent stick to these percentages as well. And then this one is probably something you can actually quantify, but where's the spend going in terms of business development and marketing? How much percent is going to, or what percentage is actually going to each of these acquisition channels? And then you can calculate the ROI from there, because essentially what this is doing is just dividing the revenue by the marketing spend percentage. But here it's the total market. You could just use your own business as an example only, and then you'll find the ROI of each marketing channel. We're actually building a ROI calculator where you can do this much easier than on paper or doing it yourself, but that's one thing. If you're looking for any help with doing that and looking how can we actually make our marketing effective, how can we line those deals consistently, I actually built this system which we synthesized from a couple of large companies in the space who sign these deals, some of which are clients of ours who have done large government deals, large deals with insurers, large deals with contractors, and also logistics deals, which are non-procurement. Most of the other ones are in procurement. We can definitely help with that. So you can book a call down below. There's going to be my link to my website where you can explore this into more depth. I cover this entire enterprise marketing system in a video. So even if you don't want to get on a call, that's fine. I would recommend you do though, because worst case scenario, you walk away with some value and an implementation plan of that system. So I think that's great, but just up to you to decide. This is the table that I would recommend you more or less make a sample of in your own company. And then one thing I would highly recommend everyone who is watching, make an SOP for demos, but also make sure you have some type of tender platform. Coincidentally, we are building one as well. So let me copy this one. This is the tender platform I'm trying to build. It's just a mock-up at the moment, truthfully. But what we're going to do is we're going to build, and this is a little bit of a sneak peek right here, but a platform which has the AI integrations for tenders, where you will be able to create alerts, so monitor tenders with your API keys, do the bid writing using AI, and also learn over time from each bid. That way you have an increased chance of winning the next one. And obviously this is going to integrate all the standard operating procedures that we got from working with our clients. Later down the line, this can also be expanded into a wider market than just geospatial and adjacent. But essentially that's what we're building right now. Just sample data right now is just fake, but so this is not even a real number, but we've seen those numbers left and right. Again, we're building this. It's going to be a great platform, that's what I am sure about. But for now, this is going to only be accessible as soon as we have the backend ready to clients of ours. Later down the line, we also want to essentially make this accessible to a wider audience. But for now, we can only really support our own clients with it, because it does take a lot of, as you probably know, it does take a lot of effort to create a good software as a service. So we only want to essentially use it for the service delivery and supporting that for now. But later down the line, it's going to be a great software platform as a DIY solution. For now, it's a done with you, done for you solution. Now, if you're interested in that and so getting our support in those tenders, as well as getting our support into finding a strategy for this massive funnel and making this calculation to see which channels you should use in terms of marketing and how you should use it, how you can scale them, how you can systemize everything, you can get on the call down below. Again, appreciate you for watching. If you haven't yet, you can actually subscribe to the channel, or you can go to the website, and I might add a community there actually. But for now, it's going to be LinkedIn, YouTube, and my Twitter. You can follow all of these pages. Now, I appreciate you for watching, and I'll hopefully see you in the next video where I can maybe share some more about the tender platform and also about some clients and partnerships that we're cooking on. So thank you once again.